Hello, my name is Gabriel Simonet, and I'm GeneXus marketing manager. I'm going to talk about something I like, which is replacing marketing with design. So, as an introduction, I would like to tell you that throughout my childhood and my adolescence, my father told me I had to be an engineer. He led me along that path, and I broke his heart when at some point I said, well, I'm going to go to university. All of my friends were going to the School of Engineering, but I told him I'm going to study communications because I didn't have the guts to tell him I'm going to study marketing. Some people say, oh, this is just marketing, and it's complicated to work in marketing and have a certain validity in the things that you do and say. But I think that this problem can be solved very well with design. So when I talk about marketing, this is what I mean: create, communicate, deliver value to a target market in return of a profit. If we don't do these things, we are not doing marketing, and we have to do them all well. Design is not doing nice things, it is doing nice things with intention. To think what the problem is, find a solution, and also find the optimal one. So let's see Google versus Apple in 2010. I don't want to offend anyone, but who had the best usage experience with in 2010 with Google or with Android or with Apple? Apple. That was the best user experience. That's Fabian from the development team, and he's in charge of iOS, and he's a big fan of Apple. But it's true. At that time, Android had a big problem with their products. There was great consistency with regard to the applications, but the user experience was not good because they didn't look nice. And this was a marketing problem. You have to add value to your object, otherwise, it's a problem with the user experience and it becomes a design problem. So, in 2014, they released material design in order to smooth some of the problems they had, and it worked well. They managed to create consistency in external applications, and these are the four P's for good marketing: product, pricing, promotion. They avoided problems of communication and they had. And finally, they also improved the distribution of the applications because material design left the Android applications and went to all of the Google applications. So design is not something that only Apple, Google, or Microsoft can do, but other companies can do it as well. I'll give you two examples. Chrysler was one of the three big companies until they started doing very badly, but they had a glorious time. And from the point of view of design, these cars were excellent, but they lost their way in the 60s, and they started designing this kind of thing, including the K model of Chrysler, and people were mocking them. What happens with the other models? If this is a K, what happens with ABC, etc.? So in the 90s, they hired Ralph Fields, who is a design expert, and there's a series called Abstract, which show the changes he introduced in Chrysler. And I loved a phrase from this documentary because it's what we do in GeneXus. We are in the business of making taste, and taste making takes time. I see with pride Eugenio's presentations, which are very good, and he's in the development team, and we are improving what we do. And Ralph Gilles had his first big success with the 300, which is a reimagination of the 300 of previous years. It's a car that has a wonderful presence. It looks like something that a gang from the Bronx would use in some way, but it's a car with personality. And he a conceptual car to show what Chrysler can do, and then this is an electric car. So Gilles is now in charge of the design of all these brands because Fiat and Chrysler have merged. So this is an example of how a person who has a big push with regard to design can change the whole marketing strategy. And after a bad time, they are now back on track. This is an example from the time when I was very young and the second computer was bought at home, and this was a mouse, which was actually a mouse, and it had three buttons with which you could do magical things. They Logitech doesn't do a lot of marketing. They concern themselves with design. It's a small company which invented this mouse, and they have continued investigating and have increased their sales fourfold in the last years, solving some problems extremely well. They have five design principles, and the most important one is one powerful idea. There's one idea behind each product. In a GeneXus consulting event, there was a guy from Spain which was using a pointer, and for me it was magical. He could zoom on some words on the screen, and this is from Logitech. It's called Spotlight, and it's tremendous. The powerful idea behind this product is to be able to show things on the screen and mark them easily. And again, they have increase their sales tremendously with this principle of having one good idea. Now, Chrysler and Logitech are big. We are small, and I will tell you an example from a smaller company. This company is called Power Up, and it reminded me of the time I spent at school making these little planes. And my teacher was saying, "You are wasting your time." But now these people are making planes in more resistant materials. They use plastic, they have a little engine, and they can be managed with a cell phone. This is a Kickstarter that has sold more than 800,000 units. And if you like virtual reality, they also have an application that allows you to fly with your mobile phone. So I bring this example because it's wonderful to see how we were told as children not to do certain things, and now we see that in fact they were opportunities. So these companies good, do good marketing through the design, but it's also necessary to sell the idea. And how can we do this? Selling ideas for us is a design thingy. Thingy is a technical term for us. Why do we like certain stuff? Why do we like some things? Is that way of doing that people like a certain thing? Do we like the Studebaker or this iconic cigarette box? My father showed me it's a logo which is super simple but iconic too. Shell, Coke logos. Well, they were created by this man, Raymond Loewy, who is the father of industrial design. He also worked for NASA and the military, and he was not only making logos, he did all kinds of things, even a special station. And this is what they said: between two products equal in price, function, and quality. Juan Michelini talked about this yesterday, and he said all this has to be assessed. The one with the most attractive exterior will win. So he was based on the Maya method, most advanced yet acceptable. And in order to sell something new, use something old. To sell something old, put something new. So it's like the yin yang of sales and design, and it does work. For example, he had been asked to design a super modern train, like a speed train in the 40s, and when he showed this idea, it was not accepted. It was too advanced. So he went back and said, I'm going to design a train like the one they have now, but in each iteration, he showed something more advanced until the original idea he had submitted was not so crazy after all. And there you have him with his train. So this is the Maya method, which is to make the surprising feel familiar. And this is based on a psychological fact, which is the mere exposure effect. In the 60s and 70s, it was investigated how people exposed to symbols that mean nothing for them choose some in particular. Would you choose any of them? These ones, simply because they are repeated. The same thing applies to being familiar with something, and this happened when we told Nicolas what should be the motto for the event. We submitted 3 or 4 ideas, and there was one that Nicolas said, well, this is what I was thinking of, because I'm talking about changing the future, shaping the future. So the idea was there, he had it, but we gave it the shape he needed. And since the concept was familiar for him, it was very easy for him to choose. But familiarity may lead to boredom, so you have to be careful. So you have to beware. The power of familiarity is highest when you least expect it. That's another principle. An excellent example I found the other day is Spotify. Spotify has weekly recommendations, and this is wonderful. They recommend songs, and for me it's very useful. And from time to time, a song I know comes up. The blue ones are the new ones, and in red, the old ones. Now, how is it designed? The programmers realized that the functionality was bringing in old songs, so they corrected the problem and they put only new songs. And you know what happened with the engagement of this functionality? It went down abruptly. It was completely destroyed because old songs were validating the new ones. So for everything new that we have, we need something old that validates it. And that is why they went back to the weekly discovery in the old format. When Raymond was working with NASA, he designed the Skylab and he started adding things like a table, a shower, and the special station was the most advanced and new thing he could think of at the time. But besides the table and the shower, he put a window. That is why in every special station nowadays there is a window that looks out, and that allows people to look at their homes. So you don't need to put in a graph for this event, a whole graph. When we were investigating how to shape it, we found this sentence from Mark Twain, which talks about recombining ideas, the old ones with new ones. And I liked this idea. It's like a kaleidoscope. And that sentence, you will see it uh, in your notebook at the end. We realized that kaleidoscopes are very nice but maybe chaotic. So we decided we had to control the chaos, and we said, what do they have in common? Well, they have figures that reflect things, and inside them there are components that form them. So we said, if we wanted to make kaleidoscopes, what would we do? Yesterday, Adises spoke about their management methodology that is focused on 4 managerial styles. And in our previous event, we had already used these shapes to represent the event. So we make them evolved to work here and started working with things we already had, the idea of a kaleidoscope and the figures of a previous event. There was an evolution, and then it took to what you saw here. And you may have noticed that the shapes are there, and then they fall and they start accumulating until here on this side they start to be more controlled, have reflections, and that leads to the logo. So in this, here at the front, we show how we got to the logo. There were many things that were new, but this shows how the method worked. With regard to the visual models too, we said how we're going to call the visual model. Visual language, visual contract. We want things that sound familiar. So we call them visual models. And the components, what are they? Models, components. You remember that when you were younger, you had rules that allowed you to write things with shapes. Well, those are stencils. And this is what we work with. It's a little model that you put the application through, and then you get this shape. So it's something new, super innovative, but it has something old too. So the idea of this presentation is precisely this. I loved what I was doing, but now we need to get more down to earth. You remember we were talking about replacing marketing with design. Google had a problem with marketing and they used design. Same thing for Chrysler. That solved that problem with design and Logitech. And in this case, they survived on the basis of design instead of promotion. And Power Up, which found a memory from the past, from our childhood, recreating a product that may have a market. So what can you do? This is what you can do. This is what Raymond said. The most important thing is not to complicate the consumer's life. If we manage to simplify their life, as Nicolas says, we are doing our job. So you're not going to be designers. Well, maybe here we have a lot, but none of you are going to be designers. But I recommend that you get together with people from design, because thinking of things from that point of view is going to add a lot. And finally, good design takes time. So take your time, get together with the right thing and people, and shape your future.